What if I told you that Japan is home to more than 6,000 islands, and most of them have never been permanently settled? Or that it has not had a single fatal commercial airline crash since 1985, making it one of the safest aviation nations on the planet? There are also more vending machines per person in Japan than almost anywhere else on Earth. Roughly one for every 23 people, selling everything from hot ramen to fresh eggs to entire umbrellas. Japan is one of those places that the more you learn about it, the less you feel like you actually know. So let's fix that. Here are 50 facts about Japan. Fact 50: Japan is an archipelago made up of 6,852 islands, stretching roughly 3,000 kilometers from north to south. The four main islands, Honshu, Hokkaido, Kyushu, and Shikoku, account for about 97% of the country's total land area. The rest are scattered across the surrounding seas, many of them uninhabited, unnamed, and largely untouched. Fact 49. Japan sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire, one of the most seismically active zones on the planet. The country experiences around 1,500 earthquakes every single year. Most are too small to feel, but the geological reality underneath Japan is constant restless motion, and the entire country is built around that fact. Fact 48. Mount Fuji is the tallest mountain in Japan, rising 3,776 meters above sea level. It is also an active stratovolcano. Its last eruption was in 1707, and it deposited ash across what is now the city of Tokyo. Scientists today classify it as potentially active, not dormant. Every summer, hundreds of thousands of people climb it anyway. Fact 47. Japan has a population of around 125 million people, making it the 11th most populous country in the world. But that number is shrinking. Japan's birth rate has been falling for decades, and the country now has one of the oldest populations on Earth. More adult diapers are sold in Japan each year than baby diapers. Think about that. Fact 46. Tokyo is the most populous metropolitan area on the planet. The greater Tokyo region is home to approximately 37 million people, more than the entire population of Canada. It is a city so large that it has its own internal railway network, more extensive than many countries' entire national systems. Fact 45. Japan is one of the most mountainous countries in the world. About 73% of its total land area is covered by mountains, which means the vast majority of Japan's population is squeezed into a relatively narrow strip of flat coastal land. That geographic pressure has shaped everything from Japan's urban density to its architectural ingenuity. Fact 44. The Japanese writing system is one of the most complex in the world. It combines three separate scripts: hiragana, katakana, and kanji. Kanji alone consists of thousands of characters borrowed and adapted from Chinese. Japanese school children are required to learn 2,136 kanji just to be considered functionally literate. Most educated adults know considerably more than that. Fact 43. Japan has the third largest economy in the world by nominal gross domestic product, behind only the United States and China. For decades, it held the second spot. Its post-war economic recovery, from complete devastation in 1945 to global economic powerhouse by the 1980s, remains one of the most remarkable national turnarounds in modern history. Fact 42. Sumo wrestling is Japan's national sport, with a history stretching back more than 1,500 years. It began as a Shinto ritual performed to entertain the gods and pray for a good harvest. Today, it is a professional sport governed by strict tradition. Wrestlers follow ancient rules about diet, dress, and daily life that have barely changed in centuries. Fact 41. Japan is the birthplace of the bullet train. The Shinkansen launched in 1964, just in time for the Tokyo Olympics. and immediately set a new global standard for rail travel. Today, the network spans more than 3,000 kilometers. In its entire 60-year operating history, the Shinkansen has never had a single passenger fatality due to a train accident, not one. Fact 40. Cherry blossom season, known in Japan as Sakura, is not just a natural event. It is a cultural institution. The Japanese Meteorological Corporation issues annual forecasts tracking the bloom's northward progression across the country. Families, co-workers, and strangers gather under the trees for hanami, flower viewing parties, that have been a Japanese tradition for over 1,000 years. Fact 39. Japan is home to the world's oldest continuously operating company. Kongo Gumi was a construction firm specializing in Buddhist temples, founded in the year 578. It operated as an independent family business for over 1,400 years before being absorbed by a larger company in 2006. 14 centuries of uninterrupted operation. And the crazy thing is, they were still building temples right up until the end. Fact 38. The Japanese concept of ikigai has no direct English translation. It roughly means the reason you get up in the morning, the intersection of what you love, what you are good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. In Okinawa, one of the regions with the highest concentration of centenarians on Earth, ikigai is often cited as a core reason people live so long. Fact 37. Japan has more than 150,000 convenience stores, known as konbini, spread across the country. They are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and they sell far more than snacks. Fresh meals, ATM services, concert tickets, government documents, hot coffee, and even some basic medical supplies are all available inside a Japanese convenience store at 2 in the morning. Fact 36. No theater is one of the oldest surviving theatrical art forms in the world, dating back to the 14th century. Performances are slow, masked, and deeply ritualistic, designed not to entertain in a conventional sense, but to evoke a mood, a feeling, an atmosphere. Some No plays run for hours. The masks used in performances are considered sacred objects, and only the lead actor is permitted to wear one. Fact 35. Japan is the world's largest producer of animated film and television. The anime industry generates billions of dollars annually and has built a global audience that spans every continent. What began as a domestic entertainment form in the 1960s, heavily influenced by the work of Osamu Tezuka, often called the godfather of manga and anime, has become one of Japan's most powerful cultural exports. Characters, stories, and visual styles born in Japanese studios now shape the imagination of hundreds of millions of people worldwide who have never set foot in the country. Fact 34. Japan has a word, karoshi, that means death from overwork. It entered the national vocabulary in the 1970s as the country's post-war economic boom pushed employees to extreme limits. The Japanese government now officially recognizes karoshi as a cause of death and tracks it annually. It remains a live enough issue that major corporations have faced lawsuits and government investigations over it in recent years. Fact 33. The city of Hiroshima was almost completely destroyed by an atomic bomb on August 6, 1945. The blast killed an estimated 70 to 80,000 people instantly. Tens of thousands more died from radiation exposure in the weeks and months that followed. Today, Hiroshima is a city of over 1 million people, rebuilt entirely from the ground up. The Peace Memorial, the skeletal dome left standing at the bomb's hypocenter, remains exactly as the blast left it. Fact 32. Japan's feudal era produced one of history's most iconic warrior classes, the samurai. For nearly 700 years, from roughly the 12th century to the 19th, samurai dominated Japanese society, as the military nobility. Their code of conduct, Bushido, emphasized loyalty, honor, and discipline above personal survival. The samurai class was officially abolished in 1876, but their influence on Japanese culture, aesthetics, and values never really left. Fact 31. Japan is the world's largest consumer of raw fish. Sushi and sashimi have existed in various forms for centuries, but the modern style, vinegared rice topped with fresh fish, developed in Tokyo in the early 19th century. Today, Japan accounts for a significant portion of global tuna consumption, and the country's culinary traditions have influenced restaurant culture on every continent. Fact 30. The Japanese have a concept called wabi-sabi, the beauty of imperfection and impermanence. It shows up in everything from tea ceremony aesthetics to garden design to architecture. A cracked tea bowl repaired with gold lacquer, a process called kintsugi, is considered more beautiful for having been broken. The repair is not hidden. It is celebrated. And here's where it gets interesting. That philosophy quietly runs through almost every corner of Japanese art and design, even when you are not looking for it. Fact 29. Japan has more Michelin-starred restaurants than any other country on Earth. Tokyo alone holds more Michelin stars than Paris and New York combined. Japanese culinary culture places extraordinary value on precision, seasonality, and the mastery of a single dish or technique, a philosophy called shokunin kishitsu, or craftsman spirit. And the results speak for themselves. Fact 28. The tanuki, a raccoon dog native to Japan, holds a unique place in Japanese folklore. Statues of the tanuki, round-bellied and wide-hatted, stand outside restaurants and shops across the country as symbols of good luck and prosperity. In traditional stories, tanuki are shapeshifters capable of transforming into humans, objects, or other animals. They are mischievous, but generally good-natured, one of Japan's most beloved mythological creatures. Fact 27. Japan has one of the lowest crime rates of any developed nation. The country's murder rate is among the lowest in the world, and it is considered genuinely safe to walk most city streets at any hour of the night. Lost wallets are routinely turned in to police stations with cash intact. And here's the part that gets people. The social emphasis on collective responsibility and public order is not enforced by fear. It is simply how the culture operates. Fact 26. The Japanese practice of forest bathing, Shinrin-yoku, was officially developed as a therapeutic concept in the 1980s. It simply means spending slow, deliberate time among trees. Japan's forestry agency promoted it as a public health strategy, and subsequent research supported the idea. Time in forests measurably reduces cortisol levels, lowers blood pressure, and improves immune function. Today, there are designated forest therapy trails across the country. Fact 25. Japan's unemployment rate consistently sits among the lowest of any major economy, typically hovering between 2 and 3%. The country's work culture has historically emphasized lifetime employment at a single company, though that model has shifted in recent decades. Still, the relationship between Japanese workers and their employers carries a depth of mutual obligation that has no real equivalent in most Western economies. Fact 24. The island of Okunoshima, also known as Rabbit Island, hosts a population of several hundred wild rabbits that freely roam the island and approach tourists without fear. The rabbits are believed to be descendants of animals released after World War II. The island itself was the site of a secret chemical weapons facility during the war, a history that for decades was literally wiped from official maps. Fact 23. Japan has a deep and ancient relationship with tea. The tea ceremony, chado, or the way of tea, is a ritualized preparation and presentation of matcha that can last for hours. Every movement is deliberate. The placement of every object is meaningful. It was heavily influenced by Zen Buddhism and became central to samurai culture in the 16th century. Today, it is still practiced as both an art form and a meditative discipline. Fact 22. The Japanese word ma refers to negative space, the pause, the gap, the emptiness between things. In music, it is the silence between notes. In architecture, it is the space between walls. In conversation, it is the comfortable silence between sentences. Ma is not considered an absence. It is considered a presence in its own right, and it quietly shapes Japanese art, design, and social interaction in ways that are hard to fully articulate but impossible to miss once you start looking. Fact 21. Japan was the first Asian country to host the Olympic Games, doing so in Tokyo in 1964. The Games were a deliberate statement to the world. 19 years after the total destruction of the war, Japan was back. The bullet train launched the same year. The expressways were built. The city was remade. The 1964 Olympics were less a sporting event and more a national declaration of resurrection. Fact 20. Manga, Japanese comic books and graphic novels, is a global industry worth billions of dollars annually. It covers every conceivable genre, from romance to horror, to sports to political satire. In Japan, manga is not considered a niche medium for children. It is read by people of all ages on trains, in cafes, and at home. Some of the most celebrated works of 20th century Japanese literature were published in manga form. Fact 19. Japan is home to one of the world's most elaborate and extensive systems of public etiquette. There are specific rules, widely understood and followed, about how to exchange business cards, how to pour drinks for others before yourself, how to behave on public transit, and how to enter a home. Shoes are always removed at the door. Tipping in restaurants is not just unnecessary. In many contexts, it is considered rude, implying the server needs charity rather than simply doing their job well. Fact 18. The city of Kyoto served as Japan's imperial capital for over 1,000 years, from 794 until 1869. It contains 17 UNESCO World Heritage Sites within its boundaries, more than almost any other single city on Earth. During World War II, Kyoto was on the original list of atomic bomb targets. It was removed, reportedly, at the insistence of United States Secretary of War Henry Stimson, who had visited the city before the war and understood its cultural significance. Fact 17. Japan's healthcare system consistently ranks among the best in the world for outcomes and accessibility. The country has universal health coverage, and the average Japanese citizen visits a doctor far more frequently than people in most other developed nations. Japan also has one of the highest life expectancy rates on the planet, around 84 years on average, and the world's highest concentration of people over 100 years old. Fact 16. The ninja, or shinobi, were covert agents who operated in feudal Japan, specializing in espionage, sabotage, and unconventional warfare. Unlike samurai, who fought openly under a code of honor, ninja operated in secrecy. They were used by feudal lords to gather intelligence and carry out missions that could not be done through direct military force. The Iga and Koka regions of Japan are historically considered the heartland of ninja culture, and both still celebrate that heritage today. Fact 15. Japan produces some of the finest whiskey in the world. Japanese distillers began studying Scotch whiskey production in the early 20th century and developed their own distinct style, typically smoother, lighter, and more delicate than its Scottish counterpart. In the 2000s, Japanese whiskey began winning major international awards, catching the global spirits industry almost completely off guard. Bottles that once sat unsold on shelves now sell at auction for tens of thousands of dollars. Fact 14. The Japanese concept of omotenashi is often translated as hospitality, but it goes considerably deeper than that word implies. It means anticipating a guest's needs before they are expressed, without any expectation of reward or recognition. It is selfless service, not performed for a tip, not performed for praise, but performed because making another person's experience seamless and comfortable is considered its own complete purpose. It is the philosophical foundation of Japanese customer service, and it is why the experience of being a guest in Japan tends to stay with people long after they leave. Fact 13. Japan is the only country in the world to have suffered atomic bomb attacks. The bombings of Hiroshima on August 6th and Nagasaki on August 9th, 1945, killed an estimated 129,000 to 226,000 people in total, with estimates varying based on methodology. Japan surrendered 6 days after the Nagasaki bombing. The survivors of those attacks, known as hibakusha, faced decades of social stigma, discrimination, and health complications on top of the trauma of survival itself. Fact 12. The Japanese island of Hokkaido is home to the Ainu, the indigenous people of northern Japan. The Ainu have a distinct language, culture, and spiritual tradition entirely separate from mainstream Japanese culture. For much of the 19th and 20th centuries, the Japanese government suppressed Ainu culture through forced assimilation policies. Japan did not officially recognize the Ainu as an indigenous people until 2019, a recognition that came after generations of advocacy and cultural preservation efforts by the Ainu themselves. Fact 11. Japan has a tradition called osoji, the Great Cleaning, performed at the end of each year. Homes, offices, to temples, and schools are cleaned from top to bottom before the new year begins. The practice is both practical and symbolic. You do not carry dirt, clutter, or disorder into a new year. Japanese school children also clean their own classrooms daily without the help of janitors, a practice rooted in the idea that maintaining shared spaces is a collective responsibility, not someone else's job. Fact 10. The Torii Gate is one of the most recognizable symbols in Japanese architecture. A simple structure, typically painted vermilion red, that marks the entrance to a Shinto shrine. It represents the boundary between the ordinary world and sacred space. There are estimated to be more than 80,000 Shinto shrines in Japan, meaning Torii gates appear in cities, forests, mountains, and coastlines across the entire country. The most famous, the floating torii of Itsukushima Shrine, appears to rise directly from the sea at high tide. Fact 9. Japan has a concept called hone and tateme, the distinction between a person's true feelings and the face they present to the world. Tateme is what you say in public to maintain harmony. Hone is what you actually think and feel. The gap between the two is not considered dishonest in Japanese culture. It is considered socially necessary, a way of preserving relationships and avoiding unnecessary conflict. Understanding that gap is one of the first things outsiders learn when they try to truly understand Japan. Fact 8. The Japanese art of origami, paper folding, dates back to the 17th century, though paper itself arrived in Japan from China around the 6th century. What began as ceremonial and religious paper folding evolved into an elaborate art form, and eventually a serious mathematical discipline. Modern origami theory has been applied by engineers and scientists to problems in aerospace, medical device design, and even the folding of solar panels for satellites. Fact 7. Japan is home to some of the most influential car manufacturers in history. Toyota, Honda, Nissan, Subaru, Mazda, and Mitsubishi all originated in Japan. Toyota is currently the largest automaker in the world by sales volume. The Toyota production system, a manufacturing philosophy built around eliminating waste and continuous improvement known as Kaizen, transformed not just the auto industry, but manufacturing philosophy globally. Fact 6. The Japanese island of Okinawa is one of the world's 5 blue zones, regions where people consistently live significantly longer than average. Okinawa has a higher concentration of centenarians than almost anywhere else on Earth. Researchers attribute this to a combination of diet, particularly plant-based, low-calorie foods like sweet potatoes, tofu, and seaweed, strong social bonds, a sense of purpose, and regular low-intensity physical activity maintained well into old age. But here's the part the story usually skips. Okinawa's longevity rates have been declining in recent decades as Western fast food has become more prevalent on the island. Fact 5. Japan's relationship with nature is embedded in its religious foundation. Shinto, one of Japan's two major religions alongside Buddhism, holds that spirits called kami inhabit natural objects and phenomena, mountains, rivers, trees, rocks, and storms. There is no sharp boundary in Shinto between the human world and the natural world. That spiritual framework has shaped Japanese architecture, agriculture, art, and environmental sensibility for thousands of years in ways that are still visible today. Fact 4. The 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami was one of the most powerful earthquakes ever recorded. A magnitude 9.0 event that struck off the northeastern coast of Japan on March 11th. The resulting tsunami reached heights of up to 40 meters in some areas and traveled up to 10 kilometers inland. Nearly 20,000 people died. The disaster also triggered the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant meltdown, the worst nuclear accident since Chernobyl. Japan's response: the organized evacuation, the disciplined public behavior, the massive reconstruction effort, was watched with astonishment by the rest of the world. Fact 3. Japan's capital has not always been Tokyo. For over 1,000 years, Kyoto served as the imperial seat of power. Tokyo, then called Edo, was a small fishing village that became the base of the Tokugawa shogunate in 1603. Under the shoguns, it grew into one of the largest cities in the world. When Emperor Meiji assumed direct rule in 1868 and moved the imperial seat east, Edo was renamed Tokyo, meaning Eastern Capital, and the modern Japanese state was born from that single geographic shift. Fact 2. Japan spent over 250 years in almost complete self-imposed isolation from the outside world. The Sakoku policy, enforced by the Tokugawa shogunate from 1635 to 1853, prohibited Japanese citizens from leaving the country and restricted foreign contact to a single Dutch trading post on a small artificial island in Nagasaki Harbor. When American Commodore Matthew Perry arrived in 1853 with a fleet of steam-powered warships and demanded Japan open its ports, he was not negotiating with a country that had simply been quiet. He was confronting a civilization that had deliberately sealed itself off from the entire outside world for longer than the United States had existed. Fact 1. In 1945, Japan lay in ruins. Two cities had been atomically destroyed. Firebombing had leveled Tokyo and dozens of other urban centers. The economy had collapsed. The military was defeated. The emperor had surrendered on the radio, the first time most Japanese people had ever heard his voice. 70 years later, Japan had rebuilt itself into the world's third largest economy, had become a global leader in technology, manufacturing, automotive production, and culinary culture, had given the world anime, the bullet train, the Walkman, and modern origami mathematics, and had done all of it while maintaining one of the lowest crime rates and highest life expectancy figures of any nation on Earth. Whatever Japan is, whatever force runs through that country, it does not quit. It never has. And that is 50 facts about Japan. If you learned something new today, hit that subscribe button. We have got plenty more countries, cities, and stories waiting for you.